tonight we find ourselves on a boat, but not one you'd recognize. There are no sleek white rails or rumbling diesel engines here. Your vessel is an outrigger canoe, a spider-limbed craft of lashed timber and woven sail, riding swells that have traveled thousands of miles uninterrupted. The air is a thick, salty mist on your skin, and the only sounds are the creak of wood, the flutter of sailcloth, and the endless, sighing breath of the Indian Ocean. For weeks, this has been your entire world. Your navigational charts are the stars, the flight paths of birds, the subtle taste of the wind and the drift of cloud shapes. You are one of them, the Austronesian voyagers, the greatest open-water explorers the world would ever know, and you are desperately, profoundly lost. Land is a memory. The future is a question mark on the horizon. Your stomach clenches not just from hunger, but from a deep, gnawing uncertainty. And then you see it, a smudge of improbable green on the endless blue, a jagged silhouette clawing at the clouds. Madagascar. An island so vast, so bizarrely unique, it feels less like a discovery and more like a world that discovered you. You probably won't survive this. This isn't a gentle holiday destination. It's a continent in miniature with its own rules, its own predators, its own diseases, a land that has evolved in isolation for 88 million years and isn't particularly keen on new tenants. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The canoe grinds onto a beach of startling white sand, a sound like a long, slow exhalation. You stumble out, your sea legs buckling on the terrifying solidity of the earth. The air is different here, thick with the scent of humid soil, of rotting fruit, of flowers you have no name for. It's a heavy, living perfume. Before you, a wall of emerald rainforest rises, so dense it seems to swallow light and sound whole. Strange, whistling calls and chittering echoes spill from its depths. Your companions, their faces etched with the same mixture of relief and terror, gather around you. This is it. The gamble. You've left everything you knew behind for this. The first order of business is survival, and that means food, water, and shelter. You'll learn quickly that the giant, flightless elephant birds that stalk the clearings are not to be trifled with. They're single, powerful kick capable of ending your story before it truly begins. You'll learn which fruits are nourishing and which bring a painful, convulsive end. This is your new, brutal, and beautiful reality. Historians still argue whether these first settlers, who arrived around 350 BCE, were intentionally aiming for this specific island or were simply the luckiest, or unluckiest, depending on your perspective, castaways in human history, blown wildly off course from their established trade routes between Southeast Asia and East Africa. The mainstream historical fact is that Madagascar was one of the last major landmasses on Earth to be settled by humans, a testament to its terrifying isolation. The linguistic and genetic evidence points to a founding population of perhaps just 30 to 100 women, a startlingly small number of pioneers from whom the entire Malagasy people would eventually descend. Imagine the pressure on that first generation. Every decision, every relationship, every argument over where to dig the first well, echoing for 1,000 years. As you help drag the canoe further up the beach, securing it against the tide, you feel the weight of that legacy settle on your shoulders. You are no longer just a voyager. You are a founder. And the towering, mist-shrouded highlands in the distance are calling. Your first few days are a blur of frantic activity and profound disorientation. The beach, which initially felt like a sanctuary, has become a vulnerable, exposed strip between a hungry ocean and an impenetrable wall of jungle. The decision to move is not a debate. It is an instinct, a collective pull towards the highlands that loom in the distance, their peaks seeming to pierce the soft underbelly of the clouds. You leave the salty air behind, the sound of the waves fading into a memory as you and your small band begin the arduous trudge inland. The coastal lowlands are a steamy, oppressive labyrinth. Every step is a negotiation with the terrain. Thorns tear at your simple clothing, thick vines trip your feet, and the mud, a deep, rich red, seems to suck at your soles with each step, as if the earth itself is reluctant to let you go. The air is alive with the hum of insects you cannot see, a constant, droning orchestra that plays from dawn until deep into the night. You quickly learn to distrust the beautiful things, the vibrantly colored frogs whose skin secretes a deadly toxin, the tranquil-looking pools of water that are breeding grounds for a fever that will set your body trembling with chills and fire. This is not the land you left behind. The very trees are alien, their shapes bizarre and unfamiliar. The great baobabs, which your people will one day call Riniala or Mother of the Forest, stand like massive, upside-down carrots, their branches resembling roots clawing at the sky. It feels like a land dreamed by a god with a strange sense of humor. You travel light, carrying only what you could fit in the canoes. Your tools, your precious stores of seed rice, and the intangible, vital cargo of your customs, your language, your ancestors' stories. Every unfamiliar bird call is a potential warning. Every rustle in the undergrowth could be a predator. You see the scat of creatures you cannot identify, and at night, the eyes of lemurs glow in the torchlight from the canopy, their haunting, ghost-like cries making sleep a nervous, fractured thing. You are a trespasser here, and the entire ecosystem seems to be aware of it. The mainstream historical fact you're living is the Great Austronesian Expansion, one of the most astonishing, long-distance migrations in human prehistory, a pulse of movement that spread a single-language family from Madagascar all the way to Rapa Nui. Hidden within your seed stores is a taste of home, the humble Asian swamp taro, a staple of Southeast Asian diets. You will plant it here, and it will survive, but it will never achieve the culinary dominance it held in your homeland. For reasons lost to time, it remains a minor, almost forgotten crop in Madagascar, a quiet, edible ghost of a road not taken. Historians still argue whether the rapid settlement of the highlands was a deliberate strategy for defense and resource control or a simple, desperate flight from the malaria-ridden coasts. As you finally begin your ascent into the foothills, the air cools slightly, and the dense jungle begins to give way to a different landscape, one of rolling grasslands and scattered, tougher woods. You crest a ridge, breathing heavily, and look out across a vast, dramatic expanse of valleys and mountains. The sight steals your breath. It is formidable, yes, but it is also open. You can see for miles. You can see your future. And in that moment, the exhausting, terrifying journey feels worth it. You have found the stage upon which your descendants will build their masterpiece. You don't just claim this land, you listen to it. 4 days, you and the others become students of the terrain, your eyes learning to read the subtle language of the highlands. This isn't a blank slate for you to impose your will upon. It's a living, breathing document, and you must learn its grammar before you can write your story upon it. You walk the ridges, feeling the firmness of the ground underfoot, and you descend into the valleys, where the air is cooler and the soil is damp between your fingers. You are looking for the perfect confluence, the sacred intersection of 3 essential elements: slope, soil, and, most crucially, water. You follow the sound of it, a distant, whispering rush that grows into a chuckle, then a confident gurgle. You find a stream, not a raging torrent that would wash your work away in a storm, but a steady, reliable flow, clear and cold as it tumbles over mossy stones. This is the lifeblood, and everything else will be built around its unwavering pulse. The slope is your canvas. It can't be too steep, or your walls will never hold. It can't be too flat, or the water will stagnate, becoming a breeding ground for mosquitoes and rot. You find a gentle, south-facing incline, bathed in sunlight, its gradient just right for the water to perform its slow, gravity-fed dance from one level to the next. And the soil, you kneel and take a handful of it, letting it sift through your fingers. It's not the sandy, impoverished stuff of the coast. It's a deep, volcanic clay, rich with iron that stains your hands a rusty red. It holds its shape when you squeeze it, yet it's friable, promising good drainage. This is the body of your future fields. You mark the spot not with a flag, but with a quiet understanding that passes between you and your companions. A nod. This is the place. The mainstream historical fact you're enacting is one of the foundational principles of ancient geoengineering, the strategic selection of settlement sites based on long-term agricultural potential, a practice seen from the Incas to the Chinese. They won't find grand post holes for longhouses, but rather strange, shallow, circular depressions and scattered chips of worked obsidian, suggesting your initial homes were simple, expedient affairs, perhaps even semi-subterranean pit dwellings roofed with whatever was at hand, a far cry from the elaborate wooden villages that will follow. Historians still argue whether this intimate knowledge of the land was brought fully formed from your Austronesian homeland or whether it was a desperate, brilliant, on-the-fly adaptation, a technology rediscovered under the immense pressure of an alien environment. As you stand there, visualizing the cascading steps of terraces where now there is only wild grass, you feel a connection to this specific patch of earth. You know its moods, its potential. You have listened to its whispers, and now, it is time to answer. The vision is clear in your mind, a cascading staircase of lush, green paddies. But the reality begins with a single, brutal, unglamorous cut. There are no machines, no draft animals to share the burden. There is only your body, a simple wooden shovel tipped with fire-hardened iron, and the unyielding earth. The first person steps forward, the chosen one for no reason other than they are there, and they drive the blade into the hillside. It's not a clean slice, it's a jarring impact that travels up your arms and into your teeth. The sound is a dull thunk of metal meeting compacted clay and a network of stubborn, tenacious roots. You all take turns, your muscles screaming in protest, your hands blistering and then callousing in a matter of days. This is not farming. This is excavation. This is a war of attrition against a slope that has held this form for millennia. You are not just digging, you are convincing the mountain to change its shape. The work is methodical, maddeningly slow. You dig a trench, the foundation for the first and most critical wall, the one that will hold back the entire weight of the earth and water above. This is where the real artistry begins. You aren't just piling up dirt. You are building a bund, a retaining wall that must be both strong and flexible. You gather stones from the stream bed, large, flat ones for the base, smaller ones to fill the gaps. The soil you excavated is mixed with water and trampled by feet, yours, your children's, until it becomes a thick, plasticine mud. This pies or rammed earth is packed layer by painstaking layer between the stone faces. There's a rhythm to it, the scrape of the shovel, the wet slap of the mud, the steady, stomping dance of bare feet. It's a communal heartbeat. A child's laughter as they slide in the mud patch is a brief, welcome melody against the grunts of labor. You learn to test the wall's integrity by feel, by sound. A solid thump is good, a hollow echo means a weakness, a future collapse. The mainstream historical fact you're demonstrating is the global, independent invention of terracing, a technology that emerged wherever humans faced mountainous terrain and a need for stable, irrigable farmland. They'll find that the specific clay you're using, combined with organic matter and the relentless pressure of your feet, creates a chemical bond over time that is nearly as durable as modern concrete, a phenomenon known as pozzolanic reaction that you understand only as the wall holds. Historians still argue whether these monumental landscape projects were coordinated by a centralized, chief-like authority or whether they emerged organically from the collective, season by season labor of individual family groups, a slow, bottom-up sculpting of the world. As the first wall finally rises to shoulder height, a curved, earthen smile against the hillside, you step back, caked in mud and sweat. Behind it is a raw, shallow scar of exposed earth. It looks nothing like a field yet. It looks like a wound. But you see what it will become. You have made the first mark. The mountain has accepted your signature. With the first terrace carved and its wall standing firm, your focus shifts from earth to its master, water. You are no longer just a digger. You are a plumber, a hydraulic engineer whose tools are gravity and intuition. That gentle, gurgling stream you found weeks ago is now your patient and your partner. The first task is to coax a portion of it away from its natural course. You dig a diversion channel, a shallow, carefully graded ditch that runs along the contour of the hill high above your terraces. This is the Fisaka Lalana, the straight path, the main artery. Its gradient is everything. Too steep and the water will rush through, eroding your work. Too flat and it will simply stagnate. You use a simple A-frame level, 2 sticks and a string with a weight, your eyes squinting as you ensure that for every 10 paces, the channel drops by no more than the width of your thumb. It's a painstaking, body-cramping process of constant adjustment. Now comes the delicate part. From this main channel, you create smaller ditches, like capillaries, that feed directly to the topmost terrace. You carve a simple, adjustable gate, a flat stone or a plug of mud and grass, to control the flow. The moment of truth arrives. You remove the gate. Water, which has known only one path for centuries, hesitates for a second, then tentatively explores this new one. It trickles, then flows, spilling over the lip of your channel and into the waiting, empty basin of your top terrace. You watch it pool, a shimmering, silver sheet against the red earth. It sits there, held by your wall, a testament to your persuasion of the landscape. But this is just the beginning. The true magic is in the overflow. You have carved a notch in the terrace wall, a spillway, at just the right height. Once the water reaches that level, it begins to spill over, not in a destructive cascade, but in a gentle, controlled waterfall, down to the terrace directly below. And so it goes, from one level to the next, a liquid staircase, each step nourished by the one above. You have not conquered the water, you have invited it to dance, and it has accepted. The mainstream historical fact you're implementing is the principle of cascade irrigation, a system so efficient and elegant it was developed independently by ancient societies from the Ifugao in the Philippines to the Nabateans in Petra. You've unknowingly designed a system that discourages mosquito breeding. The water is never truly stagnant, it's always slowly moving, filtering itself as it percolates through the soil and spills to the next level, and the small fish you'll later introduce into the channels will feast on the larvae. Historians still argue whether the knowledge to build these complex, village-wide irrigation systems was brought to Madagascar in its complete form or was a fragmented knowledge that was painstakingly reassembled and reinvented through generations of trial and catastrophic, mudsliding error. As you sit on your terrace wall, watching the life-giving water complete its slow, graceful descent from the highest field to the lowest, you feel a profound sense of order. You have tamed not the water, but the flow of time itself, turning a chaotic downpour into a predictable, manageable resource. The land is finally ready to receive its soul, the seed. The seed. It is the reason for all of this. The back-breaking labor, the engineered waterways, the reshaping of a mountain, it all converges on this single, humble point. The rice, or veri as you call it, is not merely a crop, it is a sacred trust. You unseal the containers that made the ocean voyage with you, vessels woven from tight reeds and sealed with beeswax. The air that escapes is dry and carries a faint, dusty, vegetal scent, the smell of your past and the hope for your future. You reach in and let the grains trickle through your fingers. They are not the pristine, uniform white of milled rice, but smaller, darker, clad in their tough, protective husks. This is the treasure you carried across an ocean, each grain a potential feast, a prayer for survival. To lose this seed is to lose everything. The weight of that responsibility sits heavily in your palms. The preparation of the seed is a ritual in itself. It cannot be simply thrown to the earth. It must be awakened, invigorated. You begin by winnowing, pouring the grains from one basket to another, letting the wind carry away the chaff and the dust, leaving only the plump, viable seeds behind. Then comes the soaking. You submerge them in clean water from your new terraces, in wide, shallow clay pots. They will rest there for a day, sometimes two, absorbing the moisture, their hard shells softening, the tiny embryo within stirring from its long dormancy. Some of the elders, the keepers of the oldest knowledge, murmur incantations over the water, songs that speak of strength and fruitfulness, calling upon the ancestors to bless this new beginning in a new land. You watch as bubbles occasionally rise to the surface, the seeds, quite literally, breathing. This is the moment of potential, the quiet, underwater promise of a harvest. The mainstream historical fact you're engaging with is the domestication and global dispersal of Oryza sativa, the Asian rice species, which would become one of the 3 most important food crops on the planet, a journey that began in the Yangtze Valley thousands of years before your voyage. It's not the high-yield, short-season varieties that would come to dominate the world. It's a tougher, more aromatic, long-cycle japonica type, a stubborn relic of an older agricultural tradition that, against all odds, will find its perfect home in these highland terraces. Historians still argue whether the central, almost spiritual role of rice in Malagasy culture was an import from the original Austronesian homeland or a cultural development that blossomed in response to the sheer, life-or-death importance of successfully cultivating it in this challenging new environment. As you lift a handful of the soaked, heavy grains, their pale, swollen bodies ready to burst into life, you feel a connection that transcends sustenance. This is not just food. This is a piece of your homeland, now sleeping in the water of your new one, waiting for the signal to rise. The terraces are built, the water flows, and the seed is ready. But a landscape of mud and water does not make a society. As the physical structure of your new world takes shape, so too does its invisible skeleton, the complex web of rights, responsibilities, and hierarchies that will bind your community together. You are no longer just a band of survivors, you are becoming a village. And the most valuable asset in this village is not gold, nor is it land in a general sense. It is water. The precise, measurable, life-giving flow of it. This creates a social order as intricate and engineered as your irrigation channels. At the top of this hierarchy is the water master, an elder whose wisdom is as crucial as any warrior's strength. He is the one who decides the schedule, the fomba, determining which family's terrace receives water, and for how long. His word is law, because a mistake in his judgment, a moment of perceived favoritism, could lead to a failed crop, jealousy, and the unraveling of the entire community. Your place in this new order is defined by your relationship to the rice. The most prestigious role is that of the landowning elder, the one who directed the initial, back-breaking work of carving a terrace from the hillside. That terrace is now his family's heritage, a piece of the mountain that will bear his name for generations. Then there are you, the skilled laborers, the wall builders and channel diggers, your value measured in the strength of your back and the cleverness of your hands. You might be granted the right to cultivate a small, lower terrace in exchange for your work on the communal systems. And at the bottom are the landless, the newcomers, or those who have fallen on hard times. Their survival depends on working the fields of others, their payment a share of the harvest, a meager portion that must last until the next season. It is a hard life, a constant negotiation at the edge of hunger, a reminder of what you all could have been without collective effort. The mainstream historical fact being established here is the development of the Fokanalona, the traditional Malagasy community structure built around collective labor and resource management, a system that would form the bedrock of highland society for centuries. Stealing a chicken might cost you a basket of rice, but diverting a neighbor's water flow during a critical period? That could cost you a zebu, the ultimate symbol of wealth and status, a penalty so severe it was almost mythical. Historians still argue whether this nascent social structure was a direct transplant of a Southeast Asian model or an entirely new invention, forged in the fires of necessity and the unique demands of terracing on a monumental scale. As you line up with your neighbors, your clay pot in hand, waiting for the water master to nod and allow you to direct the flow into your family's plot, you feel the weight of this new society. It is a system of delicate checks and balances, as fragile and as vital as the terraced walls themselves. Your survival is no longer just an individual struggle, it is a collective promise. The work of your hands has built the body of this new world, but you understand that the land has a spirit, and that spirit must be appeased. The rituals begin long before the first seedling touches the water. The community gathers at the highest point of the terraces, near the source of the stream, a place considered thin, a place where the world of the living brushes against the world of the ancestors, the Razana. An elder, his face a map of wrinkles earned under this same sun, presides. He is not a king or a chief, but a conduit. In his hands, he holds the most potent offering you can provide, the blood of a rooster, a splash of precious rum, and a few grains of your unsoaked, sacred rice. His voice, a low, rhythmic chant, rises and falls, not with the melody of a song, but with the cadence of a conversation. He is speaking to the Razana, explaining what you are about to do, asking for their blessing, their protection from pests and blight and unseasonable cold. He is, in essence, introducing your ambitious engineering project to the original landlords. This isn't a one-time ceremony, it's a thread woven through the entire growing season. Before you transplant the first delicate green shoot, you will place a small offering of honey and tobacco at the corner of your field, a whispered request for strong roots. When the water first flows into a new terrace, the children are tasked with floating flower blossoms on the surface, a playful gesture that is also a charm to ensure the water's sweetness and generosity. You learn the taboos, the foddy, as important as any war. There is a foddy against whistling in the rice fields at night, for it may call mischievous spirits who will tangle the stalks. There is a foddy against speaking harshly to your neighbor while working in the mud, for the anger can seep into the water and poison the roots. The entire landscape is alive with intention, every action echoing in both the physical and the spiritual realms. The mainstream historical fact being practiced is a form of animism, a belief system common to many ancient cultures, where natural features and ancestors are revered as active, conscious participants in daily life. At the first harvest, the very first spoonful of the new rice, the very vau-vau, must be eaten by the village's oldest living member. The belief was that their aged body, closest to the ancestors, could detect any spiritual poison or curse in the grain, sacrificing their own safety for the good of the community. Historians still argue whether the specific blend of ancestor worship and nature spirits found in Madagascar represents a pure, preserved form of the original Austronesian belief system or a unique syncretism that developed after contact with Bantu African traditions on the island. As you stand with your head bowed during the elders' chant, the smell of rum and wet earth in the air, you feel it, a shift in the atmosphere. It's a sense of permission. The rituals are complete. The land, the water, and the ancestors have been consulted. Now, it is finally time to plant. The decision of when to plant is not taken lightly. It is not just a matter of the sun's warmth or the soil's readiness. It is a celestial conversation. The elders, the true astronomers of your village, spend their evenings with faces turned upwards, reading the great, star-strewn scroll of the night sky. They are waiting for one thing, the full moon. But not just any full moon. It must be the right one, following the rains that have softened the earth and filled the terraces to overflowing. Their knowledge is a living almanac, passed down in whispers and stories, connecting the movements of the heavens to the rhythms of the earth. They speak of the moon not as a rock in the void, but as a great, silent mother, her silver light a cool, nurturing milk that encourages growth in ways the harsh, masculine sun cannot. To plant under her full gaze is to tap into a deep, ancient power. You learn the logic, or at least the poetry, of it. The moonlight, they say, is gentle. It coaxes the young seedlings from the water without scorching their delicate leaves. It strengthens the stalks, encouraging them to grow straight and tall as they reach for the silvery luminescence. There is a practical side, whispered around the evening fire, that the moon's pull, which commands the great oceans, also tugs at the tiny, hidden reservoirs of sap within the plants, drawing them upwards. But the reasoning goes deeper, into the realm of the unseen. The full moon is a time of peak spiritual energy. The Razana are closer, their influence stronger. By planting during this time, you are infusing the very DNA of the rice with the blessing of your ancestors, weaving their strength into every grain that will form. The darkness, punctuated by this brilliant, otherworldly light, is not a time of fear, but a sacred cloak under which the most vital work is done. The mainstream historical fact you're observing is the ancient and widespread practice of lunar agriculture, where planting, harvesting, and other activities are timed to the phases of the moon, a tradition found from indigenous North America to ancient India. But a quirky, fringe tidbit that would baffle later agronomists is the specific prohibition against planting during the moon of the crooked stalk, a particular phase they could never quite correlate with a standard lunar calendar, suggesting it was based on a complex, localized interplay of lunar cycles and specific stellar alignments known only to the village elders. Historians still argue whether this deep, esoteric lunar knowledge was a precise science brought by the original voyagers, who used the stars for navigation, or whether it was a later spiritual development, a way of imposing a meaningful, cosmic order onto the terrifying randomness of nature in a new land. As the moon swells from a sliver to a bright, pregnant orb in the night sky, a quiet excitement builds in the village. The seed beds are lush and green, the terraces are flooded and calm. The final instructions are given. The work will not be done under the sun's revealing glare, but in the moon's mysterious, silver embrace. Tomorrow, after the sun sets, you will plant. The day of the full moon passes with a strange, suspended energy. The usual work continues, but there is a quietness to it, a sense of everyone holding their breath. As the sun begins its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, the preparation begins. You do not gather torches. Their smoky, flickering light is too harsh, too human. Instead, you collect bundles of dried reeds, binding them into long, slow-burning flares that will give off a soft, diffuse, golden glow. The tools are laid out, simple, pointed dibbling sticks to make holes in the soft mud. There is no feast, no loud celebration. A sense of reverence settles over the village, a collective, focused intention. The children, who are usually a whirlwind of noise, are hushed, their wide eyes reflecting the growing anticipation. This is not a party, it is a pilgrimage. When the last sliver of sun vanishes behind the western hills, you stand in the deepening twilight, waiting. The world is painted in shades of blue and gray. Then, a sliver of brilliant white appears on the eastern horizon. Slowly, majestically, the full moon rises, clearing the ridge as if it had been waiting there just for you. Its light is not the absence of darkness, but a positive presence. It bleaches the color from the world, replacing it with stark, silver and black clarity. The highland breeze stills, as if in respect. The only sounds are the distant, rhythmic chorus of frogs and the gentle, perpetual trickle of water moving between terraces. At a silent signal, you light your reed flares. The flames catch, not roaring, but hissing softly, adding their warm, earthly gold to the moon's cold silver. Then, as one, your community begins to move. You don't speak. You form a silent, processional line and walk toward the terraces, a river of quiet people flowing towards a sea of shimmering, moonlit water. The mainstream historical fact you're participating in is a community-wide agricultural ritual, a phenomenon seen in countless pre-industrial societies where major farming activities were synchronized and imbued with deep cultural and spiritual significance. The role of the silent walkers, typically the youngest and oldest members of the village. They didn't plant, but walked the perimeter of the terraces, their bare feet touching the earth, believed to create a protective, spiritual boundary that would keep malevolent forces from blighting the newly planted crop. Historians still argue whether the profound silence of the moonlit planting was a strict religious observance or had a starkly practical origin: the need to hear the approach of nocturnal predators in the vulnerable darkness. As you reach the edge of the topmost terrace, the scene laid out before you is one of breathtaking, almost alien beauty. The water in the paddies is a perfect, black mirror, reflecting the brilliant moon and the pinpricks of 1,000 stars. Your own reflection, a dark silhouette holding a gentle flame, looks back at you from the void. The air is cool and clean. The world is asleep, but you are awake, part of something ancient and profound. The silence is not empty, it is full of promise. It is time to work. You step into the water. The shock of it is immediate, a silken, cold embrace that soaks through your rolled-up trousers and grips your calves. The mud beneath your feet is cool and thick, a perfect, yielding consistency that squelches softly between your toes with every step. You take your place in a long, staggered row with your neighbors, each of you a dark silhouette against the liquid silver of the moon-reflecting water. In one hand, you carry a bundle of young rice seedlings, their roots wrapped in a damp ball of earth, their green leaves pale and ethereal in the light. In the other, you hold your dibble stick. The work begins. There is no spoken instruction, only the shade, rhythmic knowledge of the task. You bend at the waist, your back a horizontal line against the vertical night. With a precise, fluid motion, you press the pointed end of the stick into the soft mud, creating a small, perfect hole. With your other hand, you select a single seedling, gently separate its roots, and place it into the waiting earth. You press the mud back around its base, a firm but tender gesture, tucking it in. Then you take one slow, sliding step to the side, and repeat. The rhythm is hypnotic, meditative. Bend, poke, place, press, step. Bend, poke, place, press, step. The only sounds are the gentle lapping of water, the soft suck of mud, and the occasional, distant call of a night bird. Your world shrinks to this single, repetitive motion, this act of placing life into the receptive darkness. The moonlight is your only lamp, and it is perfect. It is bright enough to see the delicate seedlings and the surface of the water, but soft enough that it doesn't cast harsh shadows or reveal the fatigue that will surely come with the dawn. There is a strange, serene magic to it. You are not just planting rice, you are stitching the earth to the sky with green thread, row by meticulous row. The coolness of the water and the mud is a balm, the night air a respite from the usual heat of the day. You lose track of time, measured only in the growing expanse of perfectly aligned, moon-kissed green behind you. The mainstream historical fact you're performing is the transplanting method, a key innovation in wet rice agriculture that allows for better spacing, weed control, and ultimately, higher yields than simple broadcast sowing. It was said that on this one night, the moisture condensing on the leaves as the temperature dropped wasn't dew, but the moon herself exhaling her vitality directly onto the plants, a celestial blessing that no sun-grown rice could ever receive. Historians still argue whether the superior yields sometimes attributed to moonlit planting were due to these spiritual beliefs leading to more careful, focused work, or if there was a genuine, if subtle, phytochemical benefit to the plants from being transplanted in the cooler, less stressful conditions of the night. As you straighten up for a moment to stretch your back, you look down the line of your companions, all bent in the same reverent posture, their movements a slow, silent dance. The terraces, once empty mirrors, are now being inscribed with a living, green script. The night feels alive, humming with a quiet, purposeful energy. You are not just farmers, you are scribes, writing the future of your people, one seedling at a time, under the watchful eye of the moon. The world you are working in belongs to others, and as the night deepens, they begin to announce their presence. Your human silence amplifies the sounds of the non-human world, a symphony of clicks, chirps, and rustles that rises from the water and the surrounding darkness. The most constant sound is the frogs, a rhythmic, pulsing chorus that seems to vibrate up through the mud into the bones of your feet. Tiny, jewel-bright tree frogs cling to the rice stalks you've just planted, their throats puffing out like translucent bubbles. Then there are the others. A sudden, sharp splash in a nearby paddy makes you startle. It could be an eel, a valuable and unexpected source of protein that has found its way into your irrigation system. Or it could be something else. Your people tell stories of the faneni, a monstrous, serpentine eel that can grow as thick as a man's thigh, a creature of the deep pools and hidden waterways, rarely seen but always feared. You are not the only one planting tonight. A soft rustling in the grasses at the edge of the terrace draws your eye. In the moonlight, you see a family of 10 wrecks, strange, spiny little insect eaters that look like a cross between a hedgehog and an opossum, snuffling for grubs turned up by your work. They are harmless, even beneficial. But other eyes are watching. High in a nearby tree, a pair of glowing orbs reflects the moonlight. A fossa, perhaps, the island's apex predator, a sleek, cat-like mongoose that can take down a lemur twice its size. It is watching the 10 wrecks, not you, but its silent, predatory patience is a reminder that you are a guest in its domain. The most haunting presence, however, is the sound that drifts from the forest, the wailing, ghost-like cry of a lemur. It is an unearthly sound, a lament that seems to speak of the island's deep, primeval past. Some elders say the lemurs are the embodied spirits of the very first people of the island, and their cries are a warning, or a welcome, you can never be sure which. The mainstream historical fact you're witnessing is the incredible biodiversity of Madagascar, a living laboratory of evolution that resulted in over 90% of its wildlife being found nowhere else on Earth. The lalamina, a type of giant, supposedly bioluminescent earthworm that was said to surface only during the full moon planting, its body glowing with a faint blue light as it aerated the mud, a sign of immense fertility for any field it touched. Historians still argue whether the profound respect, even fear, the early settlers had for Madagascar's unique fauna slowed the rate of human-caused extinctions, like that of the elephant bird, or whether those extinctions were tragically swift and inevitable upon human arrival. As you stand knee-deep in the cool water, listening to the chorus of life around you, you feel a shiver that has nothing to do with the temperature. You are not alone out here. You are part of a complex, ancient web of life, one that was thriving in this moonlit landscape long before your canoe ever touched the shore, and one that will likely endure long after your own terraces have returned to the earth. The moonlit planting is a memory etched in silver, but the work of the earth continues under the sun's relentless gaze. The days and weeks that follow are a cycle of vigilance and patience. You wade through the terraces daily, your eyes scanning the vibrant green carpet of young rice for the telltale yellow of nutrient deficiency or the unwelcome feathery head of a weed. You adjust water levels with a scrape of mud, you mend small breaches in the walls, you watch as the stalks stretch upwards, becoming stronger, more confident with each passing day. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, the change begins. The green of the paddies deepens, becomes heavier, and the stalks begin to bow under a weight that was not there before. Tiny, pale flowers bloom and are pollinated by the breeze, and in their place, the grains begin to form. They are green at first, soft and milky when you press one between your fingernails. You watch them daily, your heart in your throat, as they swell and harden, their color shifting from green to a pale, golden yellow. The entire landscape seems to hold its breath, the terraces transforming into a cascading waterfall of ripe, heavy gold, rustling with a promise in the wind. The signal for harvest is not a date on a calendar, but a consensus felt in the village. The elders walk the fields, pinching grains, tasting the starch. When the moment is right, the community moves as one again, but the mood is entirely different from the silent reverence of the planting. Now, there is laughter, chatter, a palpable, joyful energy. The tool of choice is the antsi, a small, sharp, handheld sickle. You move into the fields, not in silent rows, but in a cheerful, chaotic swarm. You grasp a handful of stalks and slice them at the base with a satisfying snick, laying them in neat bundles to be gathered and threshed. The air fills with the dust of chaff and the sound of singing. This is the payoff, the culmination of a year's backbreaking labor, a season's hope and fear, all concentrated into this golden, sun-drenched moment. The mainstream historical fact you're experiencing is the Harvest Festival, a universal human celebration of abundance and the successful completion of the agricultural cycle, a time of feasting and community bonding that reinforces social cohesion. The very first pot of new rice is prepared. It must be cooked in a brand new clay pot, over a fire kindled with wood from 7 different types of trees, and the first 3 spoonfuls are always scattered back into the field as an offering, a debt repaid to the earth. Historians still argue whether the specific social rules governing the harvest, who got which share, how much was stored communally versus kept by individual families, were a key factor in the development of the complex, stratified kingdoms of the Malagasy highlands in the centuries to come. That evening, as the sun sets, the entire village gathers. A great communal pot holds the first of the new rice, the very vau. You take your portion. It steams in your bowl, each grain separate, fragrant, and impossibly long. You raise the first bite to your mouth. The taste is more than nourishment, it is the flavor of triumph, of a future secured for another year. It is the taste of home, not the one you left behind across the water, but the one you have built with your own hands, here, in the mud and the moonlight. The taste of that first harvest, the very vau, is a memory that will anchor you for the rest of your life, a flavor synonymous with survival and success. But as the seasons turn, and your single terrace becomes a dozen, and your village becomes a network of villages, you begin to see the echoes of your moonlit labor in the very fabric of your emerging culture. The rice becomes more than food. It becomes currency, a measure of wealth and social standing. A man's importance is counted not in coins, but in the number of granaries he can fill. The complex social rules that grew from managing the water and the harvest solidify into a caste system, with nobles, commoners, and slaves, all their lives intrinsically tied to the cycle of the rice. The rituals you performed at the stream's source evolve into elaborate state ceremonies presided over by kings, who derive their power from their perceived ability to intercede with the ancestors for a bountiful harvest. The landscape you helped carve becomes the heartland of powerful kingdoms like the Marina, their power built entirely on the foundation of these vast, engineered terraces. Your simple act of planting a seedling under the moon has helped build a civilization. Centuries will pass. The world will change in ways you cannot imagine. Ships with vast white sails will arrive, followed by steamships and airplanes. The modern world will press in on the highlands with its concrete, its cash crops, its relentless, globalized economy. Young people will be lured away from the back-breaking work of the terraces to seek their fortunes in the bustling chaos of the capital city. The ancient lunar calendar will clash with the rigid ticks of a digital watch. Supermarkets will offer cheap, imported rice, undercutting the painstakingly grown local vary. It would seem, to an outside observer, that the old ways are doomed, a picturesque relic destined to be paved over by progress. The rhythm of the moon seems no match for the rhythm of the stock market. The mainstream historical fact is the immense pressure that globalization and economic change have placed on traditional agricultural practices worldwide, threatening both biodiversity and cultural heritage. The heritage rice movement, where chefs and food activists in Tanna pay a premium for specific, aromatic heirloom varieties grown the old way, on moon-aligned terraces, creating a new, niche market that just might help save the ancient practice. Historians still argue whether the resilience of these terrace systems in the face of modern pressures is due to their sheer physical durability or the profound, unshakable cultural identity that is still rooted in the Tani, the land. And as you walk your terraces now, an elder yourself, you see the truth. The modern world has not replaced the old, it has settled over it like a thin film. The young people may leave for the city, but they often return, their heads full of new ideas, yes, but their hearts still yearning for the taste of the very vow from their family's field. The pull of the land, the whisper of the Razana from the earth, is stronger than the call of any city. The terraces are still here. The water still flows. The moon still rises, full and silent, every month. The knowledge has not been lost, it has only been sleeping, waiting for the next generation to remember. You stand at the edge of your terrace one last time, not as the young, strong-backed pioneer who first cut into this hill, but as an elder whose spine has been shaped by a lifetime of bending to the rhythm of the earth. The sun is setting, but it is the moon you await, the same full, luminous orb that witnessed the beginning of your story here. As it rises, its silver light does not illuminate the landscape with the stark clarity of that first planting night. Instead, it softens everything, blending the sharp edges of the retaining walls, blurring the line between water and sky, weaving the entire scene into a single, tranquil tapestry. The terraces are no longer a human engineering project. They have become a natural feature of the land, as intrinsic to the mountain as its own bones. The water moving from one level to the next is not the sound of your cleverness, but the steady, slow heartbeat of the hill itself. You have not conquered this place, you have married it, and your long life together has been a conversation of mud, and moon, and grain. You think of the countless cycles you have witnessed, the soakings, the plantings, the watchful growths, the joyful harvests. You see the faces of those who worked beside you, some now ancestors, their memories as much a part of this soil as the volcanic clay. You think of the children who slid in the mud, now grown with children of their own, who will soon learn the weight of a seedling in their hand. The legacy you leave is not written on parchment or carved in stone, it is written in the living, breathing, green and gold script of these cascading fields. It is a story that will be read not with eyes, but with hands and feet, with backs bent in familiar posture, with hearts that understand the sacred contract between humanity and the earth. The debate of historians, the pressures of the modern world, they all seem to fade into a distant, irrelevant hum. The only truth that matters is here, in the cool night air, in the scent of wet earth and growing things, in the profound, unshakable peace that comes from having built something that is both useful and beautiful, something that will endure. The final, mainstream historical fact is this. The rice terraces of Madagascar, born from the ingenuity of those first settlers, stand today as one of the great, unsung agricultural wonders of the world, a testament to human perseverance and a sustainable way of life that endured for well over a millennium. A local saying, passed down through the generations, that on certain still, clear nights when the moon is full, you can still hear the soft, swishing sound of the first planters moving through the water, their silent work echoing eternally in the lunar light, a permanent part of the landscape's memory. And as you take one last, long look, you understand that you are not leaving this place. You are becoming part of its whisper. The mountain accepted your signature long ago, and now, it is ready to hold your story. The journey is complete. The final image is cast, not in the vibrant colors of day, but in the soft, forgiving monochrome of moonlight, a scene designed to linger in that hazy, pre-sleep space behind your eyelids where memory and dream gently intertwine. The struggles, the back-breaking labor, the moments of fear and triumph, all of it now settles into a quiet, profound sense of peace. You have witnessed the birth of a civilization from a single, daring voyage, seen a society grow from the mud of a hillside, and felt the deep, spiritual connection between a people and their land. It is a story of immense effort, yes, but more than that, it is a story of harmony, a reminder that our greatest achievements are not those where we dominate nature, but those where we learn to listen to its rhythms and find our place within them. The terraces remain, a gentle, rolling staircase to the stars, a lullaby written on the landscape. The water continues its slow, endless dance from one level to the next, a soothing, rhythmic sound that carries with it the whispers of all who came before, a soft, continuous promise that life, and care, and growth, will always continue. Let that rhythm slow your own breath. Let the silver light behind your eyes ease the tension from your limbs, and let the deep, abiding peace of this ancient place carry you away into a quiet, dreamless, and restorative sleep.